for that cover, and I'll get that later.
Did you get my email from earlier?
Yeah. Said you got an error.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's on the Anshadar side.
I thought I got rid of all the references to HTML, to .html, but apparently not.
Not that anybody would probably notice.
Well, and I think it might be a latency issue because I was having
I can hear you.
Yeah.
There we go. That should work now. I don't know what's going on with that. Yeah, so we're going to kind of just break this down a little bit. The way this works, it's broken into 3 different sections. First section is, of course, just a simple interview. The second section, when the monster arrives, we're going to find out what your favorite monster is, and we're going to break down what that monster does, how that works, and maybe some unique ways of how to utilize that monster in your game. And minutes is going to be what we call happy hour, where audience gets to ask all the questions they need. Hopefully it's something that will help them in their next game. So to start us off, Dave, tell us what it is you do in the TTRPG space.
I could be doing that for a couple of hours, actually. I've been working a lot on gaming the past few years, but so you want a brief of the...
Yeah, just a brief.
Okay, so a number of years ago, I was moving to Georgia from Los Angeles, and I had been working on a database program that would track first edition monsters and treasure. And I mean, you would go and put the monster in, it would calculate based on the treasure type, remember that, and come up with a list of all the treasure that you would get in a counter. And it was also a character persona database where you could put your characters in there. And so I was leaving California and going back to Georgia with my my brand new wife. And hi, Michelle, I love you. I was casting about for work because I moved back there, and everybody said, "Oh, you won't have any problem getting a job." And so pretty soon I had 3. But anyway, so I was looking for work, and I decided, well, hey, I bet a game company would be interested in this, because that was right about the time they had the Forgotten Realms game out. And so I wrote for all the game companies out there, and there were only 2 game companies that responded. One of them was New Infinities, which was Gary, and the other one was oh my God, that's what happens when you get old. Anyway, there was another game company responded, but the one that responded that gave me the most bang for my buck was Gary, and he didn't just write; he called. So I come home from getting groceries one day, and there's a message on the answering machine. I listened to it. It was, "Well, hello, Dave. This is Gary Gygax," and that's what he sounds like, or what he sounded like. And I'm like, yeah, right. I couldn't believe it. He was calling me, of all people, over a stupid little letter. Well, anyway, he called back, and I said, "No, really, who is this?" Because I didn't believe it. Well, we started talking back and forth, and he wasn't interested in the computer program. He was interested in somebody to do some writing, and wound up. We can get into this later if you want, but wound up working with him. Designing Mythus and working on the Dangerous Journey system, and it was a 6-month contract that turned into 3.5 years. And so after that, the whole thing played out. I wound up starting another game company with a former friend of mine, and we designed the very first. I would say that it was loosely based on religion, but probably more than that, because it was called Rapture, the Second Coming. It was based on the biblical Armageddon. And we had a really good thing going, but we had no head for business. We're all creative people. We didn't know how to run a business. And so eventually that folded. It didn't end well. And I kind of burned out on working on games. It just was hard on me. But then later on, I married my second wife. My third wife. And we had a couple little girls, and we were playing D&D in a group. And the littlest one was just peeking over the table. She wanted to roll the dice and move the figurines and stuff around. The other one was about 10 years old, and she was just sitting back in a corner listening to everything that was going on while we were murdering people. And I decided, I should probably write a game for these kids so that they don't learn violence. Violence is inherent in the system, but yeah, we can teach them how to role play without so much violence. And so I did. And Christy, my wife, is a degree in early childhood education. I gave it to her, and she looked it over, and we put it together. It's a fairly small thing, but it's called Quest, Role Play for Children. And it's in a PDF. You print it to your own printer. It's got color pages, and it has black and white pages, so the kids can make it their own game. They can color in the maps. They can color in the tokens. We even have an add-on that you can print on shrinky dink paper, so you can make the tokens much smaller, and they're very cool, actually. And I think I've sold maybe 1 or 2 copies of it, because most of the time I start talking to people, and I just wind up just giving them a copy because they like it. And I've had like one guy call and say, I got this off Amazon, but it's not formatted right. Well, it's supposed to be a PDF, but Amazon won't sell PDFs without an emoji. And so I have right in the front part of the game system, it says, contact us and we will give you printable PDF, plus we'll give you this other stuff, right? So I had one guy call me about that. Along the way, I started writing some fiction. I was writing some horror, and wound up at NASA, of all places, in Huntsville, Alabama. And I met another guy named Todd King, who wrote Sinzar, and we got to talking about game systems. And we bonded on that, because we're both geeks working at NASA. That's great. And we've been friends ever since. And one day he just, out of the blue, I got an email from him. I've since moved to Denver. And he says, "Hey, I want to write a book. I don't know what I want to write it about." And he had this big, long list of things. And he said, what topic should I use? And I said, why not all of them? Because, it's like, as we talked about it, we made some rather potentially difficult choices about how we wanted to tell this story. And we realized getting an agent is not going to work for us, because what we're writing is never going to sell in a New York publisher. And I'll give you a reason why. The first big reason is the villain in the first book was the Pope. We knew that was not going to fly with a lot of people. It gets better, though. We give him a chance. He redeems himself. I'll tell you that much about it.
Don't give it all away.
I won't give it all away. Maybe. So, we started writing this book, and we realized this is not going to fit in one volume. So it wound up being a trilogy, and it took us several years to write it. But by the time we were done, we were very pleased with that. And it was interesting because it dovetailed into the whole concept of the books that he had written like a couple of decades before. When he was younger and he was writing Sinzar, he was actually writing some books that worked on the same cosmology. And so this series of novels was we based it on with like characters in a video game. It was all
Right.
simulated reality, right? And so that cosmos was like the next one across, and they were able to cross over.
Oh, neat.
Okay, that's the last thing I'm going to give away about this story. But anyway, yeah, he just released the fourth book through Anshadar, which is the publishing company that we created to protect our intellectual property. And because we didn't want to have to worry about having to find an agent and having to find a publisher that wasn't going to edit the crap out of our work. So we are doing that now. And that's one of the things that's been really killing me. But recently, after the pandemic, I realized that I've been running a Mythos campaign for like 30 plus years.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And the only thing that changes is the characters. The plot and the story, the whole overarching theme is all the same. And I realized during the pandemic, there was a lot of notes that I had about things that were not included in the original rules that I wanted to put in, that I wanted them to have. One example is potions. Mythos was never really good about giving lists of potions that you could get, or how you would make them, or how someone who was a herbalist or alchemist would make them. So I wrote up a whole section on that, and then same thing for Hika forging, which is creating magic items. So before I knew it, I had this big, like 200 pages worth of stuff put together. And then I started talking to some of the other people that I had known for years upon years, people like Ed Anderson, Eric T. Smith. There was like a dozen of them. And what I did was I kind of brought them into the fold, because as I talked to all these people, I realized my stuff was new, most of it. It was never intended to be published. It was just designed for the game. But there was so much errata. And I call it errata, addenda, and miscellanea. And so I got 2 books out of that. I collected all this stuff. And in the process, I've got a repository of all the rules for the Dangerous Journey system. Some never before published. Some of it the legacy guys have taken, and it's like, hey, I want to go through Necropolis and correct all this stuff and add some stuff. And I want to go through the Epic of Aerith, which is a source book. And there's some stuff that was produced as addenda, and incorporate all of that. So Mythus Complete is the first 2 books, the main core rulebook and the magic system. All of the stuff that was never published, I collected it. So now if you've got those books, this piles on it, and it clarifies a lot of the rules. And I have to say, many years ago when the game was released, I had my first interview with some guy who was, well, you got to remember, this is desktop publishing was in its infancy, and anybody who had a laser printer could make a newsletter.
Oh, okay.
So this is a guy who published like a 6-page newsletter every month or whatever. And since he was at Gen Con, he came up and asked me. He was very polite. Can I interview for my fanzine? And I said, sure. But I told him that he's like, well, how, kind of questioning why we had so many rules and so many tables. He actually had a comparison of tables to illustrations. He's like, you have more tables in the book than you have illustrations. I said, good, more room for rules. And he didn't like that answer. And I said, well, look, these rules are for people who enjoy the game but need direction in some of the. I mean, it's a percentile based game, so you can kind of fudge. But I told him, I said, when the game was published, I used probably a quarter of those rules.
Right.
The rest of I just don't even bother with it, because it's common sense, a lot of it, and I just if somebody needs to do something, I just let them roll percentile dice, or just say it worked or it didn't work. That's kind of always how I've looked at it. So the game master, it's a game master's game, and if they want you to do something and it helps the plot, move the plot along, or helps the party, then it's their right to say, yeah, that worked, no problem. Or to say, no, don't be an idiot, that doesn't work, because he doesn't want that to happen. And so it's kind of the way I play. It's not diceless, but it's more role playing than role playing.
Role playing, correct.
Yeah.
But the rules are there.
And I've just been busting my ass getting all that stuff done.
But the rules are there for the people that are like, oh, I need rules. I mean, there are just people that are,
sure,
I need rules. So the rules are there if you need them, and anything else is because I'm the DM and I said so.
Honestly, it does add structure, but I'm one of those where I'm the DM, and because I wore that button last time I went to convention, because I'm the DM and I said so. So it just I don't use all the stuff in the Mythus Complete. The only thing I use out of that are the casting correction, spell casting.
Mm-hmm.
There was like 170 some odd castings that were written by people like Greg Pym.
Yeah.
And I wrote some of them. I forgot all about them. I forgot all about writing that casting. I think it was a protective block after I done Mythus Magick. Seriously, there were like 1,600 spells.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely a lot.
Yeah.
But like you said, the one thing I really, really like what you said was you don't have to use everything. Like we provide, right? Like, and I mean, we all have books, like we all have shelves like this. Jacob's got a shelf. You've got shelves. I'm sure Judith has a shelf. I think I see it over her shoulder.
My shelf's too big. It's over there.
Right. Exactly. So what I think the interesting thing with this conversation goes is that no matter what, they're provided for you to utilize, but you don't have to utilize any of it. And I mean, that's the interesting thing with tabletop gaming.
Yeah.
I think, tables are built so that if you run into snags and you're like, oh, I really don't know this, that's what these are for. And it sounds like Mythos and the books you're writing are very, so it's like, oh, these tables and all these unique ways to utilize them. But if it's not the way my game style is, or it's not something that I'm going to want to focus on, and I just,
I think a lot of times the most important books that you get are the source books, the world books, because that gives you the background and politics and the people and stuff, so you don't have to generate all of that. I mean, one of the things about Mythos that most people complain about, myself included, is the length of time it takes to generate a character. When you generate a persona in Mythos, but compare it to first edition AD&D, where you can roll up 6 scores and you're ready to go.
Right.
You don't know anything about the background. You don't know whether you have a sword or not, or what your armor is. And by the time you're done with a Mythos character, you pretty much know everything about that person and his friends, his family, people he's connected to. If he's got a warrant out for him or her, you know everything about that character, and you can go from there fully fleshed. That's one of the things that I've been working on, and I'm kind of proud of it. It's not done yet, but I'm working on a character generator for Mythos, and right now I can generate in probably about 5 minutes what would take a half an hour to an hour to do. It's still not done.
Yeah.
But, it's going to be, and makes my life as a game master easier. And so I thought, well, let's do this for everybody, so people who play Mythos will not have that complaint again.
He's like, I'm learning, it works well. I think the interesting thing with that is like even D&D Beyond, like Dungeons and Dragons, has those. You can just hit the button and it generates. My next goal though is to have it happens. It actually makes sense because I can just roll numbers, but if like I pull a character and nothing matches up to that character, then I'm just like, well, that kind of didn't make any sense. So I hope they use a little bit more into their random generator sooner or later.
I had an idea, and I don't know if it's original or not, but I started thinking about it. It's like there's enough variance in the personas and the evil personas that if you generate one, it could be used anywhere. I mean, it could be anything as simple as a farmer or you know, some guy out digging in the field. Or it could be, you know, a lord or an evil warlord, or it could be a bandit king or whatever. But why couldn't it be reused? So that's my idea behind the database. I mean, from as far back as I can recall. But the cool thing about it now is connected to the internet.
Right.
You log into my site, you create a character, you can choose to make them public, which means that someone in
another place
never met somewhere else can use that character, and it'll have your name as the creator. So you get credit obviously for that, but people can more easily populate a campaign, and characters can be translated.
I think one of my biggest
Dangerous Journeys is a multi-genre system. If you wanted to go from fantasy to the supernatural horror or the cyberpunk or whatever genre, which I'm hopeful that there's been some excitement amongst my legacy members that we'll be able to flesh out some of the stuff that was not published, because I have all the notes. I have all the stuff from that Gary and I shared. Stuff we talked about that was some of it's handwritten. He was a font of information.
Oh, I can't imagine.
So when I met Gary, he was still using a manual typewriter to write. He put out 10 pages a day, which may not seem like a lot, but if you're working on a manual typewriter, if you have to do an insert, you do it on another page and you merge the two. I pat myself on the back about this one because I convinced him finally to start using a computer. Frank Mincer, I think Frank Mincer tried to get him to use a computer, but I finally said, Gary, if you use a computer, we don't have to send paper back and forth or discs back and forth. And eventually he did, and he said, I've doubled my production. I'm like, shit, more for me to go through. Seriously, the first bit that I got when I agreed to work with him, was he sent me a paper box full of stuff, and I spent nights going through all of that. But he was prolific. 10 pages a day, my bud.
Yeah, I mean, I don't normally be interesting to see that that's coming back around too, with Luke taking back over Greyhawk. So that's an interesting thing to see. Gary,
and I was reading that they're going to do Forgotten Realms again.
So I don't know the fullness of what they're doing for Forgotten Realms, but they are adding a Dritz version of it because Ari Salvatore is running my
campaign out of Netheril.
Yeah, so there's only is so big. It's always funny because they call it Forgotten Realms, and because we only know about 3 different areas that really get fleshed out nowadays. But at one point, it was all fleshed out. So it's an interesting journey that's kicking off in specifically in the D&D world. We do a lot of stuff with third-party publishers. We do a lot of stuff with third-party gaming that are just TTRPGs, RPGs, things like that. But it's interesting to see that the mainstream is pulling back some roots that they haven't pulled in a while. Greyhawk, Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms all kicking back off over the next couple of years. So that'll be interesting.
It'd be interesting to see what they do. I spent a lot of time in Greyhawk.
Yeah. So.
Understatement.
We're also getting the other one back too.
Which one?
The what is it? The one like nobody wanted for like the longest time. The one with the wizards.
Second edition.
The one with the
what?
wizards and slavery and everything.
Oh yeah,
Are you talking about the slave lords?
They're picking back up Dark Sun.
Yeah.
So we'll see where that goes, and it's gonna be Dungeons and Dragons first textbook.
It's gonna be interesting because I have been less than enthused with the direction that they have been taking D&D, because it seems like they're catering to people who have no business being in a dungeon. And seriously, if you have to have a 0 level entry so you can talk about people's triggers and what they can do and what they can't do. I've said before that I hope someday that people will look at a book with my name on it, and that will be the trigger warning. My name should be a trigger warning, because I don't pull punches. Do I, Judy?
No, not at all.
It's supposed to be gritty. You're fighting monsters. You're fighting bad guys, evil plots to take over the world and the multiverse. And
yeah,
they don't play nice.
No, they don't.
Hey, that was actually
But yeah,
that was actually a big talk. I think a lot of us had over the weekend. Gen Con was how many people try to actually put so much into what they don't want you to do that does it tie you up where you can't do anything, or you say, hey, I need you out of my game because you've basically said you don't want anything dark in a dark campaign.
Right.
Yeah.
And that comes down to, like you said, the game master being very open on what they want to play. If I'm playing,
and I think that's the style of play it really is up to the game master and the players. And if they want to have a softball kind of game, that's fine. But let's not make the whole system that way. Let's give people an option to, have a sidebar in your modules that say, if you don't want to do this, you don't want to have the princess kidnapped, say she's lost, because kidnapping is a hard no, right? If somebody wants to play nice, then, well, they should buy Quest.
Yeah. Buy a much more cozy based system. And there's a lot of, over the last couple of years, you've definitely seen them developing more and more people that they don't want character death. They don't want to be in high intense moments. I
thought that's what the game was about.
True.
I mean, there were games that I played back when I was playing with my friend Matt back in my 20s. We would run games that we'd start on Friday night, and at some point Saturday we'd probably put on another pot of coffee, get some breakfast or whatever. We'd play all weekend, taking breaks for a nap or something. But that was a high point of my game mastering experiences, making everybody cry. Because they were not because they were sad, but because it was so intense,
right.
And it got to them. It made them feel, because that, to me, that was the ultimate.
Right.
Make your players feel what their characters feel.
Yeah, that's my play style as well.
We were talking about your Ravenloft books behind you, and what was it? It was the original Ravenloft, and then there was House on the Hill. I can't remember the name. It was another one where there was hope I'm not giving too much away because the damn thing's 40 years old. But there was another module that you could play them in tandem, and it was like a fever dream.
Mm-hmm.
Start out in one campaign, you wake up in the other one, and it's like, what happened? And meanwhile, behind the whole thing is Strahd, which was the ultimate. He's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Take out Strahd. I played that over the course of a weekend, and by the end of it, all the players helped Strahd because he became such a sympathetic character because of all the other stuff that was going on. And they're like, afterwards, they're like, I can't believe you got us helping the vampire.
Well,
I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like a win to me as a game master. Like I would accept that one with open arms. So I'm curious because we normally start with 3 questions, and we didn't start with 3 questions this time. We just kind of dove into the puzzle pieces that we have here. But one of the questions I'm really excited to ask though is what was your first gaming? What was that like? If you can remember.
I've got the cover on the wall. It's the blue cover with the dragon. The artwork's kind of horrid, but it was the box set. And my first wife Debbie and I, we had a young son and a son that she had before I met her. And so we didn't have the opportunity to get out much, right? So we were we'd go to KB Toys or whatever, we'd look for games to keep us occupied around the house. And we came across Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, this looks interesting. We brought it home and read the rules again, and couldn't quite figure it out. I mean, it was, how hard is it? It's Dungeons and Dragons. It was like, we had such a hard time figuring out initiative and the whole 9. And eventually we played a game,
right?
And she was the game master, and I don't recall exactly what happened, but it was a huge flop. But we loved it. We had a great time doing it, and so we eventually got a couple of other friends to join us and started playing. And that's when it really started being fun, once we had more people.
Yeah.
Because we tried doing just a duo, her GMing and me playing, and wasn't quite as fun. But yeah, it was. And I'm not a dumb guy, but it was confusing because I never done a role-playing game before. And so as we got into it, we got into more of the strange esoteric rules gotchas, like wishes. Yeah, I was in a party, we were all 2nd level, and somehow at 2nd level I found a ring of wishes.
Oh no.
It had 1 ring, or had 1 wish on it. And we ran into owlbears, and they kicked our butt.
Oh, I bet.
And killed half the party was dead, and we're running away from them, running around trees and stuff. And I was like, and she's like, well, why don't you use your wish? And I said, well, I wish we were all like 2nd level or something so we could fight these. We were 2nd level. And so, but we beat them. Barely. And I think my friend Matt looked at me. She's like, why did you wish for 2nd level? Why didn't you wish for like 5th level or something? I'm like, I don't know. I was stressed.
I was stressed at the time.
It's pressure. So, yeah, this is the same group of people that I ran out of a dungeon with 1 vampire. And they said, because we always talk about characters are always looking for clues about what they should do, and I try to give them a little trail of breadcrumbs to follow, follow the plot, or like to inform them what the choices are, what the options are. And because I always play like, I don't want to lead them around by the nose. I want them to choose what they're going to do and why they're going to do it. I want them to be clear on that. And it just, I feel like it should always be the player's choice to say, no, I don't want to do that, and didn't go. And I don't care how much preparation I've got into it. If they decide they want to do something else, I can try to convince them one way or the other, but I'm not heavy-handed. I don't
Right.
think. I just give them a really good reason why they want to do this. Like, the Unhallowed are behind this. You probably should take care of it.
Dave
The
does give
Unhallowed are
his
the big
players
bad guys
one
in
out.
the whole game system.
Dave does give his players one out. Speaking as one of Dave's players, Dave gives his players one out. If you're about to do something really stupid that will get yourself killed,
What are the words?
he will say, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And that is your one out to stop and think about it. Because if you're one of those players that just pops off with sarcasm, I'm gonna, throw a rock at the waterfall. If you're one of these players that pops off with stuff, you said it, you did it.
You said it. You did it.
And if you're about to do something really stupid, and this is a trick that I've taken from Dave, if you're gonna do something that's gonna get yourself killed, are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah, those are the magic words. And if somebody says yeah, then everybody else goes, ooh. We had a guy who joined a group many, many years ago, and I'm fair. I try to be fair, but if it comes to being brutal, and they've asked for it, then they get brutal. There's always clues that might not be a good idea to do a certain thing. We got this guy who was a friend of one of the players, joined the group, and we called him the strongest, fastest man in the world because he had boots of speed, gauntlets of overpower, and something. He was, and he had a vorpal sword. And I looked at his sheet and I thought, do I want to let this guy in here with all this stuff? Because the other characters had magic items. They were pretty well off. So it was about even. I just didn't know his play style. We found out that he was one of those people who he'd start a combat, and then while everybody else was fighting, he'd go find where the chest was and steal blind. He just, and I never said anything. He would pass me a note, and I'd look at it and go, and I'd pass him a note back. Well, my ex-wife was really good about reading people, and she saw this note passing going on after a little while. He was acting kind of sketchy. First one in the room, first one to start the fight, first one to find it. Oh, hey, look, treasure. And she told me, she said, I'm going to watch him closely. So she caught him stealing from the party. And the rest of the group was not very pleased with him. He was, honor among thieves and all that stuff. But they, you think a game master can be brutal? You should see some of my characters or some of my players, because they set a trap for this guy. And what they did was they found out that there was a dragon who had been ravaging the countryside over here, right? And so they take this job to go, stop the dragon. And he's excited because dragon treasure. So what they do is they got to the entrance of the cave, and he said, all right, let's do this. Leroy Jenkins kind of thing. He in the cave, and they just stood outside and waited until the screams were done. And then they walked in, and oh, great and mighty dragon. We were chasing this evil, thief. And we saw him come into your cave. And they were, we don't want to bother you. We're just after this guy. And the dragon said, yeah, his body's over there. and went over there.
Body's over
Yeah,
there.
he was dead. He was really, really dead. He had a ring of regeneration, but he was really dead. So they said, "Here, for your troubles," and they tossed a bag of gold to the dragon. Took the body outside. First thing that came off was that ring of regeneration on my finger now. And they started stripping him one by one, inventoried everything he had, all his money, all his stuff.
Oh, wow.
Nice haul. Probably better than they would have gotten from the dragon. They stripped this guy naked, opened a portal, and kicked his body through.
Wow.
And then, divvied up the treasure. And he's sitting there the whole time going, and then he looked at me, he's like, well, what do I do now? And I handed him a blank character sheet.
So, well, I guess you create a new character.
He got up,
Walked out.
gathered all this stuff, and he fucked right off. We never heard from him again. And I said, you guys are evil. I didn't make him do an alignment check, but it was really pretty evil what they did.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, if you've been getting jerked over over and over and over again in a campaign, sooner or later it's going to come back and bite you in the ass. That's all I'm saying.
Karma.
Yeah.
I don't do alignment checks really. I mean, there's not really an alignment system in Mythus. You can be benign, you can be evil. I mean, your actions.
Right.
If you have a pact with some the other being, yeah, that's pretty evil. But we don't really check to see if you're becoming evil, and there's not really anything that happens to you if you do, other than if you serve a good deity and you do some evil stuff, then you're going to lose that.
Right.
Obviously, connections you might lose. But I don't penalize anybody for that. If they want to be evil, then they'll get what's coming to them.
Absolutely. Well, we burned right through the monster on this one because I think in all honesty, it makes me laugh because what we're talking about is how players are the monster.
We found out. Yeah, that's what we found out. The real monsters sometimes are the players at your table.
Sometimes are the players at your table. So we're going to kind of
first book I ever wrote was a anthology, very small, very short. It was based on a book that I was going to publish when I was with Quintessential Mercy, but Quintessential Mercy ran out of money right about the time it was time for me to publish my project. I had all the writers lined up. I had all the artwork. I had the cover done. I had it laid out. I had edited the whole thing, and the company went bust. So I had a number of stories that I had written for. It was Twisted Bedtime Stories was a panel that I did at a local convention in Atlanta, and so I published what I had in an itty bitty book, and the motto or the byline for the book was Twisted Bedtime Stories. It was about the monster. It wasn't about the monster under the bed. It was about the monster in the bed. It was erotic horror. But yeah, characters are worse. They can be worse than the monsters.
100%. What about you, Judith?
You asked what my favorite monster is? Is this the part where you ask me what my favorite monster is?
Sure, let's find out what your favorite monster is.
I think anybody who has been playing and running games for as long as I have, you don't really have one monster. You have a monster type that you like.
Okay.
And mine are the ones that are the annoyance monsters. The ones that, probably aren't going to do too much, but you see them and you go, oh, God, not again. Like a rust monster.
Oh, yeah.
Or an intellect devourer. It's lovely when you have somebody, especially somebody who's a first-time player, it's like, you see a little brain running around on four legs. A what? And they only after they kick the snot out of it, they discover there's an illithid behind it.
Yeah.
Oops.
Terrifying.
Kobolds. I love kobolds.
Kobolds.
Oh, I love kobolds. I had her. She had missed one of our games where they ran into this kobold leader who he had quite a bit
Do
of
the
fun.
voice.
Huh?
Do
Do the voice.
He was. And he was trying to help the party because they big damn heroes. And the big damn heroes gotta go kill at them things in there. And we'll show you how. And so they were trying to convince the players to go wipe out these hobbits, halflings, sorry, that were in the ramparts of this ruins, because that was the best way to get to the tower that they wanted to get into, was through the catacombs.
Ah.
And so he says, we used to. She basically told him we used to live in those ramparts, and these halflings, they chased us out. They took our stuff. They beat us up. Please. And character's like, well, what's in the catacombs? Oh, bad stuff. We don't go in there. Well, you want us to go get to the tower? Well, yeah, better than go through the door. And I just had this whole dialogue that I carried on with them, and they kept saying, what did he say? And I, between the laughter and the what the hell did he just say? I think they were quite entertained. And when I gave Judy the notes for the game that she had missed, and she's like, "Oh, you gotta do that voice for me." So we got, Bleak. Bleak.
Nice.
That's me. It was fun, and he they wound up. Well, they didn't exactly kill all the halflings, but they did. Once they got into the ramparts, they found the halflings were rats, so they had to kill a bunch of them. And so they when they wound up leaving the ruins, they were big damn heroes for the kobolds. I mean, I like that sort of thing. I mean, and it could be like taking on a persona of a giant who's really strong but not that smart, and getting them into the dialogue with the monster.
Right.
So intelligent things generally, but the annoyance monsters are fun too.
Oh yeah, rust monsters are nasty, especially old rust monsters. What about you, Judith? What's your favorite?
It's not going to be a surprise to Jacob, but my favorite monster is a kappa, and they didn't come out for D&D. Kappas did not come out until Forgotten Realms, but I just like kappas. I like the legends of the kappas. I like that they can be a water monster or a land monster. I like some of the creative ways that players will try and get a kappa to dip their head and spill their water. You can have a lot of different fun with a kappa because, they can fight. They can drag you underwater and eviscerate you, and they can fight while not spilling their water. And I actually thought about that, if you're doing martial arts or various things, keeping your head still so you don't spill that bowl of water. It's a skill, but you can do a lot of different things. You can play with movement. You can play with, I'm in the water, I'm in the river. You can play with, I'm on land. And, I can be a good kappa. If you don't irritate me, I can teach you medicine and bone healing and a lot of cool things. Or if you irritate me, I can be a real trickster. So kappas have always been my favorite.
Nice.
And Don Eccles just rewrote the kappa for Mythus.
I know, I tore it apart.
Yeah, I saw that. Well, speaking of which, I'm talking about Don Eccles. He's one of the legacy members, and they have been doing such marvelous work on Mythus and finishing stuff up and editing existing works and adding to it. And I don't know, I couldn't be more proud to work with those guys. They're just, I mean, it's everybody from, like I said, the guys that have worked on it, that did some of the work towards the end of the project. They became fans and game masters, and then submitted stuff to me and Gary, and which we worked into the game system. And I mean, I've known these guys for over 35 years, and they're just they're amazing. But I've got 12 of them. 12 of them. It goes all the way from designers to game masters to players. My wife Christy is one. She's she's one of my biggest fans, except when I throw kobolds at her. And my old friend Matt Booth, who I played with D&D first edition with years and years ago. But yeah, there's only 12 of us, and I've been thinking lately, probably use 13 because that's a lucky number. So Judy, I'm not going to get on my knees, otherwise you wouldn't be able to see my face. But would you be a legacy member?
Aww.
Yes, I will. I'm already doing a lot of the work,
I mean, you were one of my first demo team members. So.
I was. That's how I got involved. I did D&D after first edition, but not quite second edition. I remember my friend's father had the first edition little 5x8 book. It was a 5x8 book, and it had a little whiteboard, and it had a bag of dice, and that was it. It was a pamphlet book. It was tiny.
God, dice were horrible.
Yes, they were. They were garbage. Yeah. But I got a little older. We started playing with my friend's dad, and then I got a little bit older. It's been 45 years. Yeah. And then Dragon Con, after Mythus came out, I got involved with the GDW demo team. Dave brought me in. I met Gary. I have one funny story about Gary. I don't walk very well. I have cerebral palsy, so I don't walk very well. And I got hung up. I had my books. We couldn't leave anything in the room because the room wouldn't lock. So I had all my books and my stuff, and I got hung up in a doorway. And me in a doorway looks like a ping pong ball or an old pinball machine. You watch the ball hitting the bumper. That's me in a doorway, just stuck. And I lost my balance, and I started running toward the wall, and I was going to face plant into the wall.
Oh, no.
And Gary happened to be right there, and Gary grabbed my arm and kept me from face planting into the wall. So, yeah.
Wow.
My best Gary memory. Just, yeah. Of course, he was fun to play with, but me being a new player, and oh my God, this is Gary Gygax. Oh my God, Dave. I knew Dave, but Gary oh my God, this is Gary Gygax. I was such a fangirl, and I was so intimidated at the table. And of course, he had that deep growly voice. Well, what are you gonna do?
Right.
Next.
Camels, many years of those. So my story about Gary, the one that I find heartwarming, was when I met Christy. It was before it was common for people to meet online, but I met her online completely out of the blue. Wasn't even looking, right? And I was browsing through this site in New York called the Globe, and they had personal section. So to see what the people in New York do, and pretty much one ads on the internet are always going to be that way. But she had one that said Beatrice Seeks Benedict. And I don't know how many other people got the Shakespeare reference, but I did. And so I sent her a quote from Shakespeare. She responded. I responded back with something from Romeo and Juliet. And it kind of went on like that for a while. And a month later, it got serious from the very beginning. But she said, how do I know you're not an axe murderer? Because, all of her friends were like, oh, this guy, you don't even know who this guy is. Don't get serious about this. And I said, well, what do you need for me for you to know I'm not an axe murderer? And she said, well, do you have any references? I said, yeah, I got references.
Do you have references?
I gave Gary as a reference. I gave her I gave her Gary, who was neutral. I gave her my mom, who, she's not going to say anything bad about me.
Right.
And I gave her my ex-wife. I said, if anybody's got something to say bad about me, she will. So fair is fair. She actually called Gary and talked to him for a while. She's like, I can't believe you know Gary. And I'm like, these books, my name's on the cover. Of course I know Gary. So, yeah, long story short, he must have given me a good reference.
Good reference, yeah.
Yeah. We've been married for almost 30 years now.
That's awesome. Because we don't get a lot of opportunities to ask these types of questions, because we don't have a lot of people in our circle that actually knew Gary for who he during those times. Other than when I get a chance to talk to him, but he still sees him as his dad. He doesn't really see them as at the level that he is for a lot of other people.
Luke was in the military when we were working on Mythus, so I never met him at that point.
Yeah,
I knew Ernie, and I knew his youngest son, and Elise, his sister.
Yeah. What did you say was one of the biggest from working?
Oh, so much. I look at Gary as he started out as, oh my God, that's Gary Gygax. I was such a fan, and then I got to know him, and he was like a mentor to me. I learned so much about game design. I learned about a lot of things that, how people would deal with you when they thought you were, when you were somebody who was famous. And I got to hang out with the cool kids, and I remember the first convention we went to where we announced Mythus was Icon up in New York, Long Island. And we got up there, checked into the hotel room, and went down and met Gary and Gail downstairs. And they had in the hotel, they had a green room for the guests where all the guests were staying. And so this is Gary. This is a perfect example of Gary. We went into the green room, and I am starstruck because there's, oh my God, Nichelle Nichols was the guest of honor, and there were a number of people. One of the other people that I remember very well was Spider Robinson and his wife, his late wife. They were such sweet people to us. They helped us navigate the whole thing. But Gary and I started walking through the green room, and it was like walking one door, and there's this big long banquet table filled with food, and there were chairs all along. People weren't standing, but there were chairs all along the walls, and all these famous people like Armin Shimmerman was there, and many other people. And we walked through, and Gary knew many of them. And here I am, just kind of tag along, wide-eyed, big grin on my face, and it was so amazing because you think these people are somehow larger than life, because they're on the big screen or whatever, or they write books that you've loved for years. But they're just people, and some of them were kind of rude and dismissive. And it kind of hurt. It hurt to think that some of these people were real assholes.
Right.
But we made our way around the green room, didn't pick up any food. And after we said hi to everybody, or after he said hi, and I'm like, he turned and he looked at us and said, okay, so we've seen everybody. Let's go up to the bar and drink with the fans. So we went out, and I mean, I don't know if it was so much a big fish in a little pond thing, but Gary really did care about the people who played his game. I remember talking about how they wanted to raise the prices on stuff, and he was always like, "No, let's not. Let's not raise the price. Let's keep the price the same." Or and he wanted to be able to have more material for people, and it was more important for him to have a game where the people enjoyed themselves, whether it was D&D or Boot Hill or Top Secret or whatever, than it was to make money. And I kind of carried that with me through my career in game design and in writing, actually. I know how he felt. He felt genuinely good to create something that somebody else appreciated. And if there was something wrong with that product or whatever, he took it seriously. You'll hear a lot of people talk shit about Gary, and that probably talk about me as well. I don't care. I believe one of his quotes when we were talking about this. It's like, Gary, how do you handle it when people say that kind of stuff about you? And he's like, I don't care as long as they spell my name right. he was a target of so much crap, and the game company that he founded when it was the hostile takeover, they put the employees of TSR, they set them against him, trying to dig up crap on him and trying to and say just some of the most scurrilous stuff. And these are people who work for him, and they knew him like I did. They would have never done that. And I mean, I don't know. I don't think I'm special in that regard. But if somebody were to say, "Hey, I need you to go dig up some crap on Gary, or you're fired," I would have said, "I'll make it easy for you. I'm out," because that's the kind of guy he was. He built loyalty, and I always have, and probably always will, feel loyal to him. It's just a big reason why Legacy happened. I wanted to make sure that his legacy was intact, and all the material that was written was collected in one repository and available to anybody who still played. Because anybody who's still playing is somebody who loves the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was. I mean, he wasn't a perfect guy, and granted, if he's walking around a convention and getting hammered on by one after another fans for an autograph or, hey, you want to read my game? And I walked around Gen Con with him. I saw the kind of stuff that fans put him through. I mean, and they didn't mean anything by it. I mean, they were honestly jazzed to see him. But depending on the day, and everybody has a bad mood. I've heard people who have a really good opinion of him, and I've heard other people, friends of mine, who said, "Yeah, I met him. He was a real jerk." It's like, well, put yourself in his shoes. He was probably walking around the convention all day, being
bombarded.
Yeah, and so he was probably tired. And yes, he was sarcastic. he was. Yeah. One of the first times that we were together was at a Dragon Con in Atlanta, and they had a green room, and we went up there. Before we went and had a little dinner with Margaret Weiss, but we walked in this green room, and we're wandering around, and once again, I'm new to all this, and so I'm just kind of hanging back and watching. And Gary's walking across, the floor, and this young woman walked up to him. And I'm not being sexist here. She was a bimbo. She kind of slithered on up to him, and she looked him up and down, looked me up and down, looked at his badge, and she said, "So, what does Gary Gygax do?" He didn't miss a beat. He just looked at her and said, "Anything you want, baby. Anything you want." And I'm standing there with my wife, and his wife, Gail, was right there. And we all just kind of said, "Oh, my God, here we go." And she didn't know how to take that. She's okay. And I'm thinking, you're at a science fiction fantasy convention. You don't know who Gary Gygax is? Who let you in the door?
Let you in the door.
Yeah. No. He could stop a conversation with his sarcasm.
Well,
Bam.
Well, and it's funny, we actually just had a conversation like this at the con where it was, we know a good chunk of people and we just go, "Oh yeah, that's such and such," or whatever. And that we'll play with other people and then they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, you know XYZ?" And you're just like, "Yeah, I know Ed Greenwood." Or "Yeah." And we just go, "That's that person," We don't
discussion before the show started.
Yeah,
Yep.
It is weird. It's a weird world community now because there is that bleed over from the industry world of, if you go to the conventions, if you start to do some writing or whatnot, these people are like you said, they're in life that you think they are. They're still people. They'll still sit down. They'll have a drink with you. They'll still sit down, talk to you as if, but then they all have their own busy lives as well. So like you said,
Yep.
Catch somebody on a bad day, even if you've been talking to them for years, they're still going to be very snippy because they're on a bad day. Like, I normally get a chance to at least say hi and to sit down and have a drink with Luke. Pretty much every convention I go to.
Yeah.
Gen Con was not that convention. I didn't even see him. Mind you, Gen Con's 83,000 people now, so it's a good possibility you just ain't going to see them.
Wait, just 3,000?
83,000.
83,000.
83,000.
I remember going doing the convention circuit and stuff, and I met Bob Aspirin, and Bob was an interesting character. He was in the SCA for many years, and my wife Christy knew him because the character that he was portraying in the SCA was Yang the Nauseating. And Bob was a bit of a character, and we would see him at some of these conventions, and he'd have a woman on each arm and a cigarette in his hand and a drink in the other. And he was just he was one of those larger than life kinds of people. He played it right. And I remember Gary and I were going to have a drink with him. We were going to go up to the bar and meet him and have a drink or two. And Gary turned to me very serious. He said, "Do not get in a drinking contest with Bob." I'm like, and here I am. I'm in my 30s. I'm a strapping youth, and I'm Irish. I can put away some whiskey. He says, Don't. He'll leave you under the table. Bob was amazing, man. I walked up to him, and I had met him before. I knew him. I don't know. He probably remembered me, but not well. But I said, "I really enjoyed your last book." He said, "It wasn't my last book."
Oops.
He said, I'm going to write more. It wasn't my last book. Oh, I'm sorry. I was okay. I looked at Gary. It's like, okay, what do I do now?
What do I do now?
And then we drank. So,
yeah.
You don't put yourself in a hole often conversationally. You really don't, Dave. But when you do, it's funny to watch.
Shut up. Yes. Yes.
I am curious to see though, because we're having these conversations about people that you grew up around when it came to the TTRPG industry and writing and stuff, and watching some of them returning back to the industry is like Margaret Weiss coming back to and Tracy Hickman coming to Dragonland TSR or for WotC. What do you predict with stuff like that? Do you see a resurgence of the old stories, or do you see that it being something new?
I would love that. I mean, the stories from first, second, third edition, those stories have been told and the material is out there, but that just gives people a chance to tell more,
Right.
to expand on it. And I mentioned earlier that I'm basing my Mythus campaign in Netherrealm because I like the Sword Coast. I think it's a great place to run. I've run campaigns in many different locations, some that I've designed, some that are prepackaged. I find it easier sometimes if I've got if I'm developing a campaign to not have to go and develop it from scratch. I've done that before, and
it's a lot.
It's a lot. It is a lot. Anybody who's been a game master knows that if you're going to flesh out a campaign, you've got to have your setting, and it's got to be good, and it has to be appropriate for the material that you're going to present. And I make no bones about this. I've talked to some of my players, and I feel like the campaign that I'm running is the best campaign I've ever written. It is a challenge because not only am I developing some additional rules for Mythus, like I am working on a Chronomancer vocation. I'm working on a Dreamweaver vocation, which is going to be interesting. I've got to see how these all work. And I'm working on a different set of rules for magic, utilizing arcane magic, which was, part of the Netherrealm campaign. And this is before mortals got too big for their britches and got slapped down. So I have many of those elements, but the characters are now, they're looking for artifacts because the weave is broken. It's all tangled up. And they are finding out as they go along why. And they're noodling it out in their head what they have to do to fix it, because if it gets too bad, the weave is going to be broken and magic is going to go away. Anything that is a magical construct or a magical being based, not like monsters, just monsters, but magical creatures.
Yeah.
And that's all going to go away. And they don't know all of the repercussions that are going to happen. But they've already figured it out. I'm going to send it back in time. And they're going to go back to old Netherrealm. And so, yeah, it's some of the stuff I had planned for them is not nice.
Right.
It's going to be dark. It's going to be really dark, and they're going to be angry at me for some of the things that I do. But so far, it's just I have a couple of people who have never played in my campaigns before, and I'm letting them acclimatize to tactics and combat so that we know how everybody reacts, right?
Right.
And I have a couple of unique members in the party, NPCs, or OPs.
OPs.
One of them is a Minotaur. His name's Sugar. And nobody makes fun of his name more than once. And then there's a character who came out of Ravenloft, Escher, the vampire, they were going through the castle at one point, and they came across him. He was just lounging in a chair reading a book, and they see him. They go in there and they realize, hey, oh, this guy's a vampire, and he's like, pulls his shirt open and says, okay, look, you're gonna kill me, just kill me. I'm fucking tired of this. And they're like, what? He's like, I'm not here because I want to be here anyway. And his backstory is he's Netherese, and he had been using the magic from one of the Nether scrolls.
Mm-hmm.
He had been going to this alternate plane. It was a pocket dimension. And he thought he was going to an empty pocket dimension that was just wilderness. And he went in and was captured by Strahd. And
found he was in Barovia without knowing.
so now he's a minion of Strahd's, and he's like, can't stand it because he was somebody before. And now he's a nobody, in his eyes, he's just a monster.
Yeah.
Well, I had my wife, Christy, plays a Fae character, and we've gone through some of the basics of what she can and cannot do. And one of the special abilities of a Fae character is they have a fairy curse, which could be pretty bad, could be pretty good. She's really responsible about not abusing that power.
Mm-hmm.
She plays that character. She's a knight in the Fae court that wound up embroiled in human affairs, and so now she's traveled around the mortal realms, and they wound up, she took pity on him, and she put a fairy curse on him. He wound up becoming a daywalker, still a vampire, but he doesn't have to feed on blood. He can feed on strong emotions.
Oh,
so you can imagine this. He likes to stir things up a little bit.
Yeah, because that's the only way he can eat.
And they're finding out that for some reason they all have a pivotal role in this. One of the other characters, my friend Matt, plays a character named Kolrishi, and Kolrishi is from another plane, another realm, and he was a minor son in a semi-noble elven house, and he worshipped the goddess of magic in his realm. Well, when he comes over to this one, he finds out that Mistra is his goddess, and he had no idea. But she's like, "What, you think we gods are only limited to one realm?"
Mm.
And so anyway, she's got him doing stuff. I actually had some fun with Matt because I've known him for so long, and we know each other's style of play. I did something that to any other character would have been evil, really, really evil for a GM to do. He was trying to research something, and he was doing stuff with something really kind of powerful. And the next thing he knows, the great God is standing before him saying, "I should smite you into atoms." And he's like, I'm just trying to do this for my lady. And the God says, "And that's why I'm going to give you my blessing." And everything went dark. He struck him blind.
Oh.
So I have a blind character. He's a mage. And he's also very good with thrown weapons. So what I did in exchange for that was I gave him hyperesthesia, which is like sensory, no vision, but he can detect
Right.
weird things like waveforms and magical trails and stuff. And I told him,
version of Daredevil.
I'll retcon that if you want me to. He says, no, I think that could be fun. And that's what I love about him. He's taken a situation that most players would say, "How could you do that to me? You made me worthless." So he's playing his character a little differently than he used to.
Yeah.
Before, he would be one of the first ones into combat. He'd be laying out stuff, because he's got very high level casting abilities. So now I told him, I said, well, if you're going to cast something, you better make sure you're casting at the right target, which means you're going to have to stop and lose that first round of combat to orient yourself, make sure that you know
where the thing is.
Where, right? So it slows him down in terms of what he can do, but it also tends to give him more insight. And every once in a while, I'll give him a visual flash of something. He's like, I saw that. I saw that. So, but yeah, it's the Ed Anderson is playing, Judy's playing, and their characters are not quite as experienced as the others who've been playing for quite a while. So I'm having to. It's good for me because I'm having to step back and focus on the range of abilities that the characters have, who can do what, and I think they all kind of have their own little niche. Judy came into play. One of the characters had been possessed, and she walked in and laid hands on her and boop, solved it. And everybody's like, "Wow!" This girl we met in a tavern, just yeah. So
you never know who you're going to meet in a tavern. That's for sure.
That's right.
So
Isn't that what Tavern Talks is all about?
It is. Who you never know who you're going to.
I like that they're going back to the old stories. I love Dragonlance and all that when it came out. I think what they're doing is taking some of the old flavor. It's going to be new stories, at least I hope, but it's going to be that flavor introducing to a new generation of audience and get everybody excited about it again. You know, the people that have been waiting, the diehards that have just been waiting, because it all eventually comes around.
Kryn is a very interesting world.
Yeah,
it is.
When Dragonlance came out, I read all the books.
Same.
And I enjoyed them so much. And then, of course, I got to meet them, the authors. Last time I saw Margaret, it was at a convention. She was sitting at a table with a bunch of I forget what they call them, like the covers of the books that she signed autographs to. And I walked up and I said, "Hey, how have you been?" And she was obviously tired. She was down to one last book cover. And she says, "I'm ready to get out of here." She said, "Would you like my autograph?" And I said, "But I know you."
But I know you.
Okay. Because, yeah, she wanted to get away from the table. She had one left she had to get rid of, so she gave it to me. She signed it.
But I know you. Okay, here you go. I just want to go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it, like I said, and I think allowing, or rather giving the opportunity for Luke to come back into the picture to bring Gary's legacy full circle, with Greyhawk being the staple.
I hope they do it justice. That's all I have to say about it. I hope they approach it in the spirit that'll do them justice.
Yeah, I think with Luke being at the helm, they're going to.
Luke is at the helm?
What's that?
Yeah.
They got Luke?
Luke is at the helm. Yeah, he signed a 5-year contract.
Awesome. That's awesome.
To help write Greyhawk. So, like I said, that's what the icon, this D&D icons, is all about. So it's Luke heading up Greyhawk. It's Tracy and Margaret heading up Dragonlance. It's R.A. Salvatore heading up Dritz, a Dritz adventure. There's a couple other ones. Keith Baker is heading up Eberron. And
that's a campaign that I never really played.
Yeah.
I saw some of the supplements. I never played.
I always thought it was an interesting story, though, because Eberron was created out of a contest, which is incredible. And then it's. I'm surprised, though, that they didn't. It seems like they're going to take a step back from Ravenloft for a bit. We thought we were going to get a bigger Ravenloft book. Ravenloft Horrors is kind of there, beast out. There's a lot of details that are lore.
But it may come later.
Correct.
I mean, it may just be, okay, we're doing this, and they're bringing the people on, see how it goes, and it may come later.
Yeah.
They're going to have to make it more than a pocket dimension if they release much more.
Right. Well, they have this spins at the whole thing. So, but
I love the concept of a multiverse, and a lot of the stuff that I run reflects that.
yeah.
All the way back, I've always run a dimension hopping sort of campaign, and at first it's one of the, it's always a problem sometimes when you've got a group and you hope you can get them all together, but can't always. And so these characters go off doing their thing, and this person, had to go to a dinner or something, and they come back in later. And so we always had this thing going where whatever, it didn't matter which tavern they were in, we always had the Time Bandits entrance where you hear the and then they fall through the ceiling. Party's back together, folks.
Right. Well, Dave, Judith, it has been an absolute blast talking with both of you tonight about the way that you develop TTRPGs all the way up till today. One thing I want to make sure that we shout out before the show ends, though, is what are you guys working on? Tell us a little bit about what Mythus is.
Well, I continue to work on the automated Excel spreadsheets for GMs and for characters. So when, like I said, some of the stuff is complex, like combat can be complex. If you use all of the combat rules, it's really too much, I think. But I've got an automated system for that where you can put all your stuff in there as a player, and you hit F9 and it recalculates. So it rolls the dice, determines if you hit or not. If you did, it determines if it was a critical success. And then I've got for game masters, I have campaign spreadsheet that has different sheets with the rules on them, at least the ones that I use, that make my life easier developing a campaign and running a campaign. I have all the NPCs and the same thing, recalc and monsters roll. So I'm certainly working on that. I have a database of close to 1,800 spells.
Wow.
In it, with the description and all the statistics and everything. It lost a little bit in translation, but I didn't have to put it all in. And so there are some spots where, for example, the table was not large enough when it brought it in, so it truncated some of the rules. Some of the castings are quite long, so I've had to adjust it, and I'm working on getting that edited and put together correctly. So that will be a resource for everybody. I have a site, actually, mythus.abervon.com, and it has all of the rules collected. It has a number of additional treatises and documents that I put out there for people, like poisons and avoidance and picking locks and stuff that wasn't covered very fully when it was released. So I got all that stuff out there. I have, of course, all of the Mythus Complete, Mythus 2025, and for people who, the old school people who had bought the book and started losing pages out of it, this was a common problem with the first printing. I have PDFs of all this stuff, so you can be playing and pull up a reference in your browser. And most of them I have bookmarks, so you can find stuff easily. So that's one thing that I'm working on. Started, like I was talking earlier with James, I was working on a lot of stuff for a while there. I had a lot on my plate, and my hands, I've got arthritis in my hands, so sometimes it's a challenge to spend a lot of time at the keyboard. So I've kind of slowed down on this rapid development of everything. And the next big thing that's going to come out of Anshadar is I'm working on a horror novel.
Awesome.
And
well, we look forward to
I'm
that.
about halfway through the first draft.
Amazing.
And that's, again, I think some of my best work. When we first get started, you know, in the gaming industry, we write stuff, and you go back and look at it 10 years later, and you say, God, you know, I could have spent more time working on that, or I could have done that differently. This could have been better. I don't know. I'm my own worst critic sometimes, but I think everything I do gets better, and that's how I. Well,
experience is a key factor there.
Yeah.
Was said at Gen Con, and one of the panels this was, you know, writing 1/3 and practicing 2/3 seems to be the better option nowadays. Once you've got enough on the paper that you can start running something, then you start running it, and then you learn the tools, the tricks of what players are going to utilize and what the module needs developed in order to be successful in a larger format or be transferred to others. And I think that comes to a long range portion, which is what you were saying. I think this is but the cool thing about that is without all of those things you did years ago, that none of this would be your best work.
Sure. Yeah. Expertise builds on experience.
So
good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from poor judgment.
Isn't that the case? Especially after weekends at Gen Con. Woo! Anyway,
The worst could be done in Vegas.
Sore feet.
Sore feet. Too many.
Who goes to a con to sleep?
Yeah, nobody.
You'd be surprised.
And you drink too much and things get bad. Anyway,
you know, this is me in Dragon Con for years. I would be up in the middle of the night, drawing or writing or whatever out in the lobby, and I'd run into this guy, same guy, and I didn't know what his name was. Hey dude, what's up? And never thought, but years later we wound up in the same group hanging out. We were LARPing, and I learned his name, but it was funny because he knew who I was, but I knew him by face. I didn't know what his name.
I know him by dude.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, I usually would be a little bit lit by then, but so
it definitely
remembers names.
It definitely comes with the environment, that's for sure. Well, once again, it's been an absolute honor to have both of you here tonight to talk about things TTRPG related here in the tavern. I know I got some ideas out of it. I'm sure Jacob got some things that he's going to add to his arsenal of tools. And hopefully our audience that was here was able to gather something that they can use game table. Make sure that you go check out his stuff over at mythus.com, where you can see all of their what is called the group known as the Legacy, which
and please offer me a little grace on that, because it's kind of a skunk works. It means it's where I'm playing around with stuff and rules and putting it out there, but it's not polished. I'd rather get the information out there for people to use than to worry about how nice it looks.
Absolutely.
But it is all searchable.
It is all searchable. And hey, that's a big deal.
Yes, you can search that the spell database by keyword, and you'll go and look inside the castings and find instances of it. So
amazing.
If people say, what's the name of that spell? It's like, look it up. I don't know.
Chamber time. This is last call here on Tavern Talks. Hope you all enjoyed.
Did we not have anybody in chat? Or
we had some people in chat, but nobody seemed to have asked a question. So
okay.
We did. One person did so. So we're hoping that we're going to get more from Greyhawk here in the near future. I think it's going to happen.
Well, I'm honored, and this is the first podcast I've ever been on. So
Well, we're glad to have you.
I'm honored to be
back
here.
again.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that after we close out here this evening about some things. But yeah, for those that have had an opportunity, please go check out their work. Of course, come back next week for another guest here in the tavern. And this week we come back on Sunday with, well, tomorrow night we'll have Beaker back in the garage where he'll be playing some Subnautica, and then our Gridmaster will be returning. No, August they took off. My brain's not working tonight. August was taken off, which means you'll have to come see my happy face again on Monday night as we continue our story in Icewind Dale, where they are currently trying to figure out how to defeat the Shardland Dragon. It's a nasty creature, I'll tell you what. I've made him worse. Anyway, thank you all for coming to hang out with us. Stay warm. This is Last Call here on Tavern
Thank
Talks.
you so much.
We'll see you guys all for another episode. Have a good evening. Stick around real
Bye.
quick while we raid some friends.